Will the makers of tomorrow please stand up? Because tomorrow is approaching. The ones who dare to see the future. The ones who take plans out of WhatsApp groups. A fearless bunch. Are you? See, success is not microwavable. Dreams don't just come true. There's a difference between those who become and those who don't. Trust. There's always a better choice. And the better the choice, the better your chances. So choose to make the better choice. Like the choice to create, not just online, but also in real life. The choice to speak out, no matter the social cost. Or the choice to just be, because that too is allowed. But tomorrow is approaching, and we need the makers of tomorrow to make the better choice. And that starts with saying no to underage drinking.
Good morning, everyone. We are very grateful to be here this morning to have the second installment of the aware.org underage or no to underage drinking webinar. Why we are here is that at the end of 2024, aware.org commissioned a piece of research targeted at underage youth aged 11 to 17, because we wanted to understand what goes on in their hearts and minds and what they perceive around alcohol harm, and alcohol as a general situation in their lives, and what they perceive of all of the communications that they experience around this very important subject. And we are pleased that you are here to hear what these young people had to say. We thank John from Frontline Research, the research house that did this piece of research for us, who will be presenting the findings. So thank you, John, for your time, for your effort, and for the work that your organization did to bring this research to life. So for those of you who do not know exactly what aware.org is or who we are, what we do, and why we are here, we are an organization that is the Association for Alcohol Responsibility and Education, as you can see before you. We are the harm reduction leg of the alcohol industry, which is mandated to create awareness and education around alcohol harm as a whole. Next slide, please, Pierre. Our vision and mission is we are committed to leading harm reduction and promoting responsible drinking in South Africa. And how we do this is through integrating behavioral science, data, local and global best practices. And we do this throughout our programs. Today, we are specifically speaking, of course, to one program, but aware.org works on three very specific pillars, which you can see on the next slide here. The first one, which is our key pillar, is our No to Under 18, which we are speaking to today. The second one is Don't Drink and Drive, road safety. And the third one is sober pregnancies. As you can see on the map before you, we are a national organization with a national footprint, which we are very proud of and work very hard on, in collaboration with our implementation partners who help us run these programs on the ground. They are the NPOs and the NGOs within the actual communities that we work with that engage with our audiences, whether it be our underage, whether it be our potential drivers, or whether it be our potential moms to be. Next slide, please. Today we're speaking, as I said, specifically to the underage pillar, which for us means the 19 to 17-year-olds nationwide. We start as young as 9-year-olds because this is when young people start thinking about, hearing about, and engaging with, whether it be the word or whether it be the visualization, whether it be the reality of the existence of whatever substance this is and what that substance means to them at the time. We engage with all of society as we run all our programs, as we see it fit. to include families, to include caregivers, to include schools, to include all community members as we speak to any of our pillars, because that is the only way that messages land. And of course, we want to engage with young people exactly where it is they are, which is validated by our research. We run recreation programs within communities. We do programs and activations within schools. We work in the mass media because we need to reach young people en masse. And of course, for those that we lose along the way, we work in the rehabilitation space so that we can bring them back into the fold in order for us to have a young cohort of future leaders in this country. Once again, thank you so much for being here this morning. We hope that you take in everything that you learn, everything that you hear, and that you're able to use it in future. We encourage that you ask any questions and you type them in the Q&A. The questions will be attended to towards the end of the session. And in exciting news, we have a little competition running, and that is to keep you excited and keep you engaged, which means we'll be running some poll questions as we go along to check if you're paying attention, so to speak. So if you're interested in winning some exciting giveaways, please take part in our poll. Congratulations to the winners from last week, and over to you, John.
Thank you very much. I will be sharing a presentation shortly. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Jean Moorman. I'm from Frontline Research Group. I've been doing research for the last 20 years. I want to take us through the findings. I am a researcher, so I get quite excited about data, and there is quite a lot of information and data on here as well. So I'll try and maybe not talk as fast as I sometimes do. If there are specific questions, please put it in the Q&A section, and we can attend to those later. I will be pausing every now and then just for the poll questions to come up. Please be patient for that. So maybe just to take us through the process that we're going to have. First, just a little bit of background objectives, why the research was commissioned, what the aim of the research was. Then we're looking at the more technical details, the methodology, the research approach. Looking at general behaviors and perceptions among teens in South Africa, trying to get the broader context, trying to understand where they are coming from, what media they're consuming, how they're perceiving home situation, things like school. Then specifically looking at attitudes, the attitudes towards messaging, specific impact and how this links to alcohol use. Specifically then the focus on awareness of programs and campaigns for Aware, but as well as for other organizations. Then we look at the specific campaigns and programs and how teens perceive it, and the summary at the end. So firstly, the background and objectives. The aim of the research was for us to understand specifically how is messaging perceived and how is messaging integrated when it comes to harm reduction or alcohol harm reduction messaging, whether it comes from Aware specifically or from the implementing parties in South Africa, but to really understand how can we tailor these campaigns and interventions to make a bigger impact. So to do this, we split the research into two aspects. We had the baseline survey, which was conducted with a general sample of South African teens, age 11 to 17 in South Africa. And then we had a separate leg of the research that was conducted face-to-face. Here we specifically went to geographic areas where Aware.org's campaigns implementing partners are running programs, where we talk to the households in the community to try and get a sense of how do teens get exposed to the messaging and what impact it has. Specifically, we looked at the messaging. So we looked at how relevant it is, how coherent it is for the teens if they experience or when they perceive this messaging. What are they taking out of it? And how can we adjust and how can we tweak messaging and platforms to be more relevant for youth today? So we looked at specifically, starting off, how aware are they of alcohol harm reduction initiatives in the communities in general? Do they understand what it means? How aware of that? What's their perception of these initiatives? specifically when we look at it almost from a brand perspective. So how does the Aware brand, how do they associate with the brand? What do they associate with these interventions and with aware.org? And how did this differ for those who do get exposed to the implementing partners programs and those that do not? Specifically, then we looked at aware.org campaigns and the specific messaging and the elements that resonate with the target market, and also how we can adjust these messaging platforms going forward. So the technical details, how we did the research. For the baseline and how to read the slides, for every slide you'll see that there's an online survey or it shows an orange for the face-to-face survey. For technical reasons, we can't combine the two research streams. So we'll be comparing these throughout the slides. For the online research, we conducted a baseline study of 11 to 17-year-olds in South Africa. And how we did it, we sent out more than 16,000 invitations to households in South Africa. Specifically, we asked them a few screener questions, whether they've got teens age 11 to 17 in their household. If they do, we ask them for permission to survey the teens. One of the teens that was randomly selected through the program, and to forward the invitation or to provide the device to the respondent that was selected, i.e. the teen, and we programmed a questionnaire like this. So we showed visuals, we made it easy, the wording and the text is appropriate for the teens. We conducted this just after the school holidays, between 6 and 13 December. We got a very good response rate, almost 20% response rate, for us to end up with 512 respondents from the online survey. This is a decent representation of the South African youth when it comes to demographics. So almost equal split between genders. We also looked at the provincial split. We did target specific higher provinces as per the population breakdown, and also in terms of the age and population group. 512 respondents online. Face-to-face was conducted slightly differently. Here we approached specific areas, specific geographies where aware.org implementing partners are running programs. So it would be the School of Hard Knocks, United Through Sport, etc., etc. And we conducted this also just after the school holidays. And how we did it is we randomly selected geographies, for example, in Cape Town, where we know that the programs are being implemented. And within each area, we identified that we're going to conduct 5 interviews. So we literally went in person to the areas. We started a specific program to randomize the households, knocked on the door, asked if there's someone in the household age 11 to 17. If there was, we randomly selected the respondents. We got consent from the parents at that stage, and we proceeded to have a face-to-face interview with the teens. Similar questionnaires, slightly different for the different methodologies adjusted, but we did ask the same questions of everyone. We ended up with 625 interviews conducted face-to-face. So overall, we're looking at about 1,100 teens that we spoke to overall. And maybe just to show you how the interviews panned out, if we had a specific geography, we might have started here, knocked on the first door, got a response, went 5 houses further, knocked on the door, got a response, maybe didn't get a response, and so forth. So we tried to implement a randomization factor that allows us to make sure that we give everyone in these geographies an equal chance to participate. I think it's also important at this stage to note that we did not collect personal information at all, whether it was online or whether it was face-to-face. Everything was anonymous. We want to make sure that we will never be able to tie back the responses. For our purposes, we recorded the conversations and then obviously deleted afterwards just for quality assurance. So this was basically how it was done. Like I said, for the face-to-face, also slightly more girls than boys. Population group was representative of the geographic areas. We conducted the surveys, equal split, about 150 between the different implementing partners. So we conducted 150 for Gimorja in Johannesburg, United Through Sport in Nelson Mandela Bay, School of Hard Knocks in Cape Town and surrounds, and then for Alta Sports in Johannesburg and Tshwane. Slightly more older teens that we conducted the survey with in the face-to-face survey compared to the online survey. So that was the methodology. We're going to go into some of the questions now that we asked, and we started off relatively easy. We tried to get a sense of what the life and what the perceptions is, where the teens are in terms of social and integration. So first off, we asked them a very easy question. Have you or your friends ever had a drink containing alcohol? And what we found is that about a third of them, for both the online and for the face-to-face survey, indicated yes. And then we asked specifically, how often? And for the bulk of the respondents in the online survey, about two-thirds said they've only tried it once or twice. And for the purposes of our consideration, we assume that those would not be regular alcohol consumers. And what we also see is that as teens get older, it makes sense that they're more likely to say that they or their friends have ever had a drink containing alcohol. And boys are also more likely to indicate that they've consumed alcohol or that they consume alcohol more regularly. Overall, we see about just over 12% of the online sample that indicated that they consume alcohol regularly. If we ask this for the face-to-face respondents, and maybe keep in mind that these are specific geographies that we went to, which are not necessarily the higher socioeconomic levels. And these programs are implemented in specific geographies where it's necessary or deemed necessary. And when we look at it, we could assume to some extent that these are specific areas that was identified as problematic when it comes to alcohol harm reduction. And what we see is that very similar, 37% versus 38% indicated they've ever consumed any alcohol. But interesting here, only a third said that they've only tried it once or twice. About a quarter that said once a month, another quarter a few times a month, 10% even that says a few times a week that they consume alcohol. So where the overall consumption is very, very similar, when it comes to regular consumption, there's quite a bit higher proportion of respondents who do consume alcohol, looking about 1 in 4 that says that they consume alcohol regularly for the face-to-face survey. So higher than the baseline, which was to be expected. Similarly, as teens get older, they're much more likely to indicate that they consume alcohol or that they consume it regularly. And again, boys as well. So we asked them, what's something fun or interesting that you enjoy doing in your free time? Just to get a sense of where teens are, what are they doing, what do they enjoy doing? And typically what we see is that activities for 11 to 17-year-olds are very much skewed towards media use. So music, watching TV or movies, video games, social media are the most likely activities that teens say that they enjoy and are more likely to do, with about a third saying that they play sports either as a team or individually. Slightly higher for the face-to-face survey than the online survey. But I think what's critical here is that we can see that media consumption is typically the activities, and if we want to reach teens, we would need to look at this as a medium and specifically looking at digital media. Often do you exercise or take part in physical activities? Very similar trends in both surveys, and also a bit less than what we expect. The WHO suggests about 60 minutes of physical activity per day, and then you can see that it's typically a lot lower. And I think for adults as well as for teens, that we're not necessarily getting the exercise that we should get always. But when it comes to socializing with friends, there's a clear trend that the face-to-face survey for the targeted survey of these teens are more likely to be socially integrated with their peers, that they socialize with their friends more often compared to the baseline. The baseline was conducted online, so we see more social integration when it comes to a peer perspective for the face-to-face survey compared to the online baseline. It is quite high. So when we look at the activities as well, we need to start considering that, yes, they're consuming media. They're not necessarily exercising or getting a sufficient sport, but socializing with friends is conducted by more than 70%, either a few times a week or every day for the face-to-face survey, and a very similar number for the online survey. So socializing is a big aspect as well of teens, 11 to 17. So no real great surprises thus far. Then we ask them questions, for example, how much do you enjoy going to school? And what we do see is that school enjoyment, the teens who do consume alcohol, the orange bars here, seem to be less integrated in school. And when you do ask, for example, I don't enjoy it, you've got 8% of teens who consume alcohol who said that they don't enjoy school compared to 5%. So a huge difference. But this already explains to us or suggests to us that school integration, that teens who do consume alcohol are less likely to be integrated or as well integrated in school or have positive schooling experiences. And if we also consider that a lot of alcohol harm reduction programs originate from school, it is something to keep in mind. And we are going to pause here for a poll question. Pierre, if you can bring that up. For the next section, we'll be particularly looking at attitudes and how teens, what they perceive and what their attitudes are towards a series of topics. So we introduced it to them like this, really to say that your answers will help us understand young people better. So at this stage, they don't know it's for a way. They don't understand, the parent or the guardian will know that it was for a way, but they just believe it's general social topics that we're talking about and getting teens' perspectives. And when we then start off, the first question was, when you need advice or help, who or what do you usually turn to? And what we look at for these support structures is typically that teens who don't drink or do not consume alcohol regularly are better integrated socially, it seems, with older authority figures compared to their peers. So if we compare the orange bars for those who do consume alcohol regularly compared to the gray bars who do not, you see that if they're not consuming alcohol, they're more likely to also turn to their parents or teachers, for example, compared to those who do consume alcohol. If they do consume alcohol regularly, friends and peers are more of a social support structure than all the teens. So if we link this back in terms of social integration, it suggests to us at this stage that if teens are already consuming alcohol, there is a socializing aspect and that they tend to rely more on their peers than they do on teachers or parents compared to those who do not consume alcohol regularly. Not to say that parents are not important. I mean, even still, 2/3 of teens who do consume alcohol in the face-to-face service say that they do rely on their parents. So the home situation and parents do play a critical role, but friends are more important when it comes to social issues. It's a hypothesis at this stage. But they also seem to have better support structures at home. So how often if we ask for teens, how often do they talk to a family member, like a parent or a sibling or guardian, about things that's happening in their life? We see similar here that the support structures that if teens are consuming alcohol, that they're less likely to talk to their support structures at home, i.e. parents and guardians or even family members compared to those who do not consume alcohol, 19% versus 30%. So already in our mind, we think, okay, so they rely on their friends and peers, more likely to rely on them, and they're not necessarily as open to their parents. And peer pressure, if we're looking at it in a social context, big difference between the online and face-to-face survey. And what we see here is that half of respondents in the face-to-face survey, the one that we did in the specific areas where implementing partners are busy, indicated that they never experienced peer pressure compared to only 11% for the online survey. And 52% who said that they sometimes experience peer pressure from friends that they're not comfortable with. So yes, there's less peer pressure for the targeted survey compared to the baseline, but peer pressure is surely playing a big role when it comes to harm reduction, especially if teens are more likely to be engaged online. If they spend more time online, it's also a hypothesis there's maybe a little bit less of a context in which this happens, and they see a very specific image of the world and specific influences or peer influences when they spend more time online. So yes, boys are more likely to say that they often feel peer pressure compared to from their peers compared to girls, and it also increases with age. But as they get older, they seem to experience slightly less peer pressure. So they get the social resilience, they start getting the tools, and they are more likely then to have the wherewithal to maybe withstand peer pressure. And then we ask them a series of statements. So Please tell us how much you disagree, how much you agree or disagree with the following statements. And we gave them a series of statements. Those kind of statements that are generally associated with harm reduction. So it's important for teens like me to say no to alcohol. It's unsafe to drink alcohol. It's drinking alcohol can make it hard for teens like me to focus. And the interesting thing here is that the rational or the information is taken up quite well. High levels of agreement, 98%, 96%, 94% to these statements. So there's a cognitive understanding. There's a clear rational understanding of the impact, and this is generally related to the education platform. So we know there's a lot of education that happens when it comes to the dangers of alcohol consumption, and the messaging is interpreted and the messaging is integrated quite well. When it comes to peer pressure, for example, it still links quite nicely. You'll see that more teens in the face-to-face survey is likely to say that they disagree, almost a quarter. But peer pressure is still playing a role when it comes to recognition of the alcohol consumption in South Africa. And where do they consume alcohol? So typically, when you or your friends drink, how many do you have? And you'll see, as per the consumption patterns that we saw earlier, that there's about a half of the online survey that indicated it's only one or two at a time, but you get to a third, it says that's three or four, five or six, or even more when it comes to face-to-face surveys. So, as expected, as they get older, they're more likely to say that they consume more alcohol, but alcohol consumption, if they do drink, seems to be more regular and more at a time. If they do consume alcohol for the face-to-face survey. And where? This unexpected as well. Typically, when they do consume alcohol, it's at parties for almost half the respondents, or when hanging out with friends. At family events or at home, etc., not as much. So alcohol consumption seems to be very clearly linked to peer situations and social situations with peers. And it tends to happen like it always has, at parties and when hanging out with friends, and not necessarily other sources. So there's a clear social influence when it comes to alcohol consumption. Yeah, we can ask the next poll question as we move to the next section. Specifically, what we want to explain to the teens was, what is a program or a campaign? So we had a little readout to explain to them what a program or campaign is. At this stage, they still not know that it's for aware, but they do have an understanding of what a program or campaign is. And the first question that we asked them was to say, have you heard or seen any programs or campaigns that try to address underage drinking? And we see for the online survey, almost 2/3 had said that they have seen a campaign. And if they did, then we continue, we ask them, okay, so in your own words, just give us the answer. Can you name the program or campaigns that you've seen or heard about? And they can either type the answer or they will give it to us when we ask it to them. And about 16% said that it was a program that they saw at school or at church. So in a structured environment. Love Life got a shout out, 4%, no to under 18. And again, remember, this is completely spontaneous. We coded the answers back. Arrive Alive, or Drinking and Driving, received shout out 3%. Sanka, Kimoja, aware.org. And this was for the online sample and for the sample that we spoke to online, the general baseline survey. What I think is interesting here as well is it's not just South African campaigns. When the teens bring up what they experienced or what they see as a campaign that try to address underage drinking, 2% mention social media campaigns that are international. So things from Europe, things from Australia, social messaging or campaigns that address alcohol consumption among teens that are not necessarily related to South Africa. So there's a lot of different messaging coming from a lot of different sources coming to teens. And it's the messaging is, I wouldn't necessarily say all over the place, but keep in mind that we're not controlling what teens are experiencing. We're not controlling what the messaging that they're hearing, and it is quite fragmented when it comes to how they're experiencing it. Another 18% of 18 other programs was also mentioned that's not shown here. 53% who said that they were not sure specifically about the name of the campaign, but indicated that they have seen something. So not everything always sticks necessarily. When it comes to the face-to-face survey, slightly fewer, only 41% versus 68% is that they've seen a campaign related to underage drinking. But here, when we ask them specifically the programs that they can call spontaneously, Kimoja. So those respondents in Cape Town, 20% indicated from the total sample that
Hi, ladies.
that they've seen the campaign. Alta Sports, and then we see 9% reduction. Alta Sports, so the implementing partner programs are well recognized and spontaneously mentioned by the respondents, which already gives us a sense of, so if these programs are being implemented in these areas, that they do stick to some extent. And it brings up, because even now, aware.org, 7%, no to under 18, 6%, something like Scheme SAM, 4%, Sanka, 3%. So very similar, but the aware.org campaigns do get higher recognition for the targeted survey where these implementing programs are being run. Still fragmented, not maybe as fragmented as teens who only experience these messages online, or typically experience these messaging online. So typically, what you'll see is awareness also increase with age, and boys are more likely to indicate that they've seen these programs compared to their female peers. So there might be a potential gap that we need to think about. Yes, boys are the traditional risk takers. Boys do tend to consume more alcohol, but it is for both genders, obviously. And where did you see these programs or campaigns? And typically, the bulk of them, 58% indicated that for the face-to-face survey, that they've seen it either at school, 33, about a third from the online survey. And this is particularly more likely to be recalled if they are younger, where almost 70% said that they recall these campaigns at home. So already in our mind, we suggest that younger teens are more exposed to these programs in a structured environment. But they're also more likely for the online survey to recall campaigns at school if they're already not drinking or consuming alcohol regularly. Television, yes, community events and gatherings comes out. Teens older than 15 are also more likely to recall campaigns on television. And something like YouTube or social media, 16%, 8%, particularly for the youngest age group. But what's interesting is that if they are consuming so much media and they're consuming media online, a very low proportion actually recalling campaigns that they experience either on YouTube or on social media as expected. So there's an opportunity. Already it suggests to us that yes, there's disparate messaging coming through online. Yes, there's a lot of programs being run at school, etc. But where they're consuming their media, it's not necessarily where they also recall their campaigns and the messaging. So it gives us a sense of there might be opportunities in a gap to have a more digital approach to reach teens, not as the only approach, but as an additional component. And what do you think these programs are trying to do? So they could choose as many answers as they want. And what we do see is that it tends to be education focused. So it's understanding the risks of drinking alcohol. It's about keeping people safe and healthy by sharing information, helping people to avoid alcohol, to make smart choices. But it tends to be more education focused. So less than a third of respondents actually mentioned the social aspects of peer pressure and alternative activities. So when teens think about campaigns, they tend to think of it first as an educational aspect and then something else. Very similar between online and face-to-face. No huge differences. Also more of education, but maybe slightly less. So education for the targeted survey where we went to the areas where aware.org programs are running or implementing partner programs are running, they tend to maybe agree a bit less in terms of this educational focus, and we're looking more at action-driven activities, such as helping young people avoid alcohol. So we'll explore that further. Reddit gives us just an indication of where the teens are. And what do they think of these campaigns? Do they see these campaigns as helpful or not? And the majority, and I think this is quite a positive outcome, is that almost 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10 when it comes to the face-to-face survey feel that it's helpful. It's helpful. some 21, 24% of those who do consume alcohol say that they're okay but don't make a difference. And what we typically see is that as if teens are already consuming alcohol, that they're slightly bit more skeptical. And as they get older as well, they tend to be a little bit more skeptical about harm reduction programs, and trying to understand that we'll see that the programs are not as helpful for teens that are not consuming alcohol. But this also suggests the preventative aspect of the research. Not a huge difference between it, but as they get older and if they're boys, they tend to be a little bit more skeptical. Almost 16% indicated that they're not aware of, or that they don't think so much about these programs. So there might be a little bit of a disconnect also when it comes to awareness or the efficacy of these campaigns and how teens perceive it. We can do another poll question. Yeah. So for the next section, we specifically looked at the recall of aware.org programs and the awareness of these programs. And the first question we really looked at was prompted awareness. We literally just showed them, have you ever seen this logo, the aware.org logo? Almost 6 out of 10 indicated for those who we spoke to online that they have seen the aware logo. It's quite good, with about a third that they said that they don't know. And for those who did say that they've seen the logo, we asked them, so overall, what do you think the organization is trying to do? We gave them two options. So for half the respondents in both the online and face-to-face survey, they could either type the response or speak the response, and the other half was open-ended categories. And for the good questionnaire design, we find very high levels of agreement between the two, either if they mention it spontaneously or if they have to code it. But the majority, almost half, said that the aware.org helps young people to avoid drinking alcohol. And then it's about teaching them the dangers of drinking alcohol. So when we look at this, yes, education is important, and that's where most teens do get their messaging when it comes to alcohol harm reduction messaging. But for aware specifically, it's more action driven. So helping young people to avoid drinking alcohol, and only then looking at the educational aspects or promoting healthy choices. So already in our minds, we see that education is there, but aware.org might be playing will be playing a different role from what's happening at schools or in churches and those kind of structures. So there is a different environment we can already think about where aware.org programs are playing a role. And then we asked them, are you aware of any programs or campaigns specifically by aware.org? About half said yes. If they are aware, we asked them which ones, and they could choose from the options that we have. If they are aware, more than 3/4 indicated that no to under 18, makers of tomorrow, almost half. If they are aware, making a better choice, right, so etc. So what this suggests to us as well, if they're aware, they're much more likely to recognize the no to under 18 campaign, and they know about this campaign, compared to if they do not know about aware programs. But even if they do, they still recognize these campaigns, even though they might not necessarily know that it's linked to aware. But it does suggest that there's a high level of awareness and recognition for the aware no to under 18 campaign, and the others as well, but this is the one that stands out most clearly. For the face-to-face, so remember we had almost 60%. 50% said that they're aware of aware.org when they see the logo. They have seen the logo before. It's also higher recognition for those who said that they've consumed alcohol, for those who don't. And very similar trend, helping young people to avoid drinking alcohol is the main purpose of what aware.org is doing, and only then looking at the educational aspects, such as the dangers of drinking alcohol. The aware logo was recognized a lot more. 70% for those in the geographies for Alta Sport, and Kimoja 58% compared to the general population. Which also suggests to us that if these implementing partners are running campaigns under their own banner, and it does link back to aware, the teens that are exposed to these campaigns or the areas that these campaigns are running are more likely to know about aware, and specifically to also know about the say no to under 18. So more than 8 out of 10 indicated if they are aware of aware campaigns. specifically with the No to Under 18, similar trend, Makers of Tomorrow. A big proportion of those who don't know, but also if they don't know about aware.org campaigns. And specifically now linked to aware.org, what do you think these programs, the No to Under 18, Makers of Tomorrow, Make the Better Choice campaigns, are trying to do? Similarly, we structured the answer questions, and you can see here between the online and face-to-face, very, very similar trends, no real specific big differences that we can call out. But the majority of them said, almost more than two-thirds, it's about the aware.org programs specifically are teaching us how to say no to alcohol. Yes, then there's the education aspect, the risks of drinking alcohol, how alcohol can affect future goals, health and future goals, how to make healthy choices. But already it indicates, or it feels to us like it's a bit more action driven. It's not about necessarily just the educational aspect. Yes, the educational aspect is there, but the first item that they associate with aware programs is how to say no. So it's about building social resilience. Generally speaking, teens that consume alcohol are more or less likely to associate this with aware. So again, linking back to the preventative aspects that we talked about. So do you think these programs succeed in teaching teens like you about these things? For the online survey, 32% of those who do consume alcohol, but almost half that do not consume alcohol, said that it succeeds. You'll see that it's very similar trends that the face-to-face, the respondents in the face-to-face survey was more likely to say that it succeeds compared to those in the online survey. But there are clear differences when it comes to those who already consume alcohol. So if they do consume alcohol regularly, they're more likely less likely to think that it succeeds. But even still, there are not a huge amount of difference when it comes to those who consume alcohol, who do not consume alcohol at this stage. So they tend to overall really think that these programs do succeed, and they feel positive about it. As they get older, they're a little bit less likely to say that these programs are not as successful, specifically for those 16 to 17-year-olds. And when we look at specific ages, I think we need to keep in mind that different messaging, different approaches must surely work for different ages. That one size will not fit all when it comes to harm reduction programs. But when we ask them why it succeeds or why it does not succeed, for those who do consume alcohol, they don't feel that it's necessarily as relevant compared to those who do not consume alcohol. So 13% of them said, and keep in mind, the majority feel that it provides clear and useful information, it's fun and engaging, and it's relatable. Similar trends for both the online and face-to-face survey. But as they get older, or as if they do consume alcohol, they're less likely to feel that it's relevant to their lives. So there is always a little bit of a more disconnect, and also gives us the imperative to also start younger, to get involved in it, and the teens can integrate these messages from a younger age, compared to maybe trying to get them when it becomes older, where they're already consuming alcohol. For the face-to-face survey, very, very, very similar. It's clear and useful. It's relatable. It's fun and engaging. But 1 in 5 for the face-to-face survey said they haven't seen it much. With 11% of those that's saying that it's a bit confusing or it's hard to understand. Again, brings us back to where do we approach these teens? Where do we get them? And how we take them through the different stages of their lives with something that's relevant and relatable and fun and engaging at various points in their careers or school careers, for that matter. For the next section, as we do the poll question, we're going to look specifically at some testing of specific campaigns and interventions that aware.org runs. And we started off specifically with the Makers of Tomorrow. So do you remember seeing the Makers of Tomorrow campaign? Almost half of those conducting an online survey said that they've seen this before. And where did you see it? Majority, 51%, almost slightly more than half, on social media. So the messaging for Makers of Tomorrow is coming through on the right channels, specifically then television, YouTube. 20% said that they've seen this at school, the Makers of Tomorrow campaign. So it really suggests to us that a different approach, different kind of messaging, that the campaigns are fulfilling a different role from what teens are experiencing at school, what they see in the structured environment that they're receiving. So it's playing already a different role. And teens that do not consume alcohol are more likely to say that they recall the Makers of Tomorrow campaign at school compared to those who do not consume alcohol. For the face-to-face survey, much lower, 17% compared to 46% said that they've recalled the Makers of Tomorrow campaign. Surely they're integrated with the campaigns and the implementing partners that's already running there. Seems to suggest that there's a lower proportion of teens who do recall it, specifically the No to Under 18 campaign, because those implementing partner campaigns, it's localized programs that's being implemented, it's being top of mind. Yeah, television is more important or more likely to say that they've seen the campaign somewhere, and only then social media or then at school as well. And here, though, for at school, it tends to be younger teens. So younger teens are more likely to say that they've seen the Makers of Tomorrow campaign at school compared to those who are older. Other program that we evaluated was Scheme Song, and we showed them this visual. Have you ever seen this TV program? For the online survey, almost 8 out of 10 indicated that they've seen Scheme Song. And when we asked them specifically to say what were their main takeouts, maybe in line with what Scheme Song is as a drama, something that needs to make it exciting and contentious to some extent. The messaging that comes out seems to be more punitive than positive. So the messaging, the main takeouts, is things like drinking under 18 is illegal. It can cause accidents or injuries. It can harm your brain. It can affect your. So it's these kind of negative messaging, which makes sense because in Scheme Song, it's about drama. It's about the creating narrative tension. So the main takeouts for them seems to be those negative messages of alcohol has very negative consequences. Yes, there's also you don't need alcohol to have fun, or it's okay to say no to alcohol. But typically speaking, a high proportion of recall for Scheme Song, and the messaging that comes out seems to suggest stay away from alcohol. These are the dangers, and it visually shows the drama also of and consequences. So it plays a slightly different role. We can already see for the face-to-face survey for those teens. Slightly lower proportion, only 6 out of 10 said that they've seen it, but we can see that the similar kind of messaging that comes out. Drinking under 18 can harm your brain. You don't need alcohol to have fun. It's illegal. Drinking young can cause accidents or injuries, etc., etc. But something like you don't need alcohol to have fun is more prominent now, already suggesting that if they're involved in these programs, that they're taking messagings a little bit differently compared to when they're not exposed to these programs on a weekly basis, for example. So yes, the two things do really play together quite well. Oh, by the way, good ratings. So we asked them to give star ratings, about 70% generally give it either 4 or 5 ratings out of stars out of 5. So the messaging is perceived, it's positively perceived, but it's slightly different kind of angle than what we generally see. So how would you describe the Makers of Tomorrow and Scheme Song TV programs overall? I tend to say that it's supportive. 2/3 indicated for the online survey that it's supportive, it's informative, it's inspiring, and it's relatable and engaging. It tends to be more supportive for all the teens, and it tends to be maybe slightly less relatable to those younger teens. So only 39% of 11-year-olds. But yes, Scheme Song, the messaging Makers of Tomorrow, it is targeting a slightly older demographic when it comes to the content. 11% of those in the face-to-face survey said it feels irrelevant and you really stand out here. But typically what we see is they've seen the Aware.org programs as in fact empathetic and focusing on the youth beyond just education, because the educational aspects seem to be provided at school and seem to be recalled at school. For me, what it suggests is that it does play a separate role, and it plays a role that for teens that they're not necessarily getting at other situations, whether it's through the implementing partners, whether it's through Scheme Song, or the other campaigns as No to Under 18 or Makers of Tomorrow. There's a different aspect that these programs are addressing that they're not necessarily getting in their normal lives or day-to-day lives at school. But both resonate. When we ask them which parts of the programs resonate or they find most interesting, it's about resonating on an emotional as well as a rational level. So the higher social, for those who are older, it's more about the relevance when it comes to real life stories. But if they get a little bit younger, or if they if they tend to be younger, they tend to be focusing more on the elements that stand out about group talks or activities that's led by peers. So it is about real life stories. It's about facts and stats. It's about both the emotional and the rational aspect. And I think that's also why these campaigns work. Because they're not just addressing the educational aspect, but they're doing this in a way that makes it relevant to teens, in a way that they can see the impact, they can see and visualize it, understand what the impact would be, but with real stories and not just talking down to teens, which suggests that this makes quite a big difference. Where would you like to see these messages? So overall, we asked them, if you can choose anywhere, where would you want to see these messages, specifically education and awareness messages? School remains the preferred context. So 8 out of 10 said school, but 67, slightly more than 2/3 for the face-to-face survey. But school is imperative, and I would say, from my perspective, it's a sufficient but not a necessary channel for teens, because social media, 71%, 55% social, then television, then YouTube. So there's already a preference for visual kind of messaging, what we can see. And if it's not in school, it tends to be in a digital platform. So it's either going to be through school, it's going to be in the digital platform, and only then you're going to get traction. Video games, for example, and I think about the Roblox initiative for young teens. Almost 37%, a third said that they prefer this as a messaging platform. But you can see across the board, there are different ways where we can approach teens. Typically, if it's more visual or it's more interactive, it's more likely to bear fruit. We also asked them specifically, so what do you think makes young people more likely to drink alcohol? 91% of those in the online survey and 7 out of 10 in the face-to-face survey said that it's peer pressure. It's about peer pressure predominantly. Then it goes to seeing other family members or adults drinking, more so for the online survey. Easy access to alcohol, 2/3 for them in the online survey said specifically in KwaZulu-Natal, said that this is a concern for them, was one of the reasons why teens drink. But when it comes to stress or problems in life, yes, 32 and 40%. But again, this was for those specifically in the Northern and Eastern Cape, where this could be quite a bit of a concern for people in those provinces, but also not unexpected. When it comes to peer pressure, it's more likely to be said by that it's a big problem for peer pressure for teens, for boys, and people in Kemoja specifically, and seeing other family members drink tend to be more mentioned by younger teens. So almost 60% said that teens, 11-year-olds, said that teens consume alcohol because they see family members drinking. But the main takeout for us here is that it is a social aspect. From a teen's perspective, why other teens drink or why teens drink, it's about the social aspects, about peer pressure, it's about what they can access at home, and within it's easy access to alcohol, stress, and problems. Conversely, we also asked them specifically, so what also helps teens to avoid drinking alcohol? Education comes out, learning about the risks of alcohol. 3/4 of those in the online survey and slightly more than half face-to-face, but it is more stronger. The learning about the risks when it comes to avoiding alcohol is something that younger teens, those 72% of the 11-year-olds, 67% of 12-year-olds tend to agree with more. So when we ask teens, younger teens, how our teens should avoid drinking alcohol, it's about education. As they get older, though, they indicate much more likely to indicate that it's things like structured activities or benefiting from good role models will play a bigger role when it comes to alcohol avoidance strategies. So the need for education again is younger, is more acute for those younger teens, but for all the teens, they, from their perspective, say that they will benefit more from things like social influences or someone who can help them build the social resilience to say no to alcohol use. And there's some, also some specific programs that I would like to participate in. Generally speaking, engaging in dynamic activities are more positive for teens. They're more likely to say that these are the kinds of activities. Girls, yes, boys as well, but girls particularly, about music or dance or creative art programs, whereas boys are more likely to say that they would like to participate in sports and recreational activities. But even gaming and esports activities or esports events, again, for boys, more popular. So overall, what we do see is that um, all the teens generally tend to prefer things like leadership or skills building programs or workshop, whereas younger teens tend to focus more on education. But it's not necessarily for them if they want to engage in programs. It's about being something that's engaging and dynamic. We can do the last question, poll question here, and then we're going to go into the summary. So we created a one-page summary for this, and basically just comparing all the numbers again that we can see. So regularly consuming alcohol, 12% for the online survey, quarter for the face-to-face survey. Pretty much in line with what we see in some other studies as well. Yes, there is a big difference, but we did talk to different audiences. 63% that they've seen any kind of programs or campaigns aimed at harm reduction, 41%. And typically what we do see is that for the 1,100 teens that we spoke to, most teens recognize its negative effects. So rationally, the impact on health, decision making is being recognized on a rational level. But just being aware is not sufficient. And we see that when we talk to teens, they say things like peer pressure, exposure to alcohol consumption by adults, are significant drivers of alcohol use. The programs that are being implemented specifically show big impact. Something like Altis and United Sports are generally quite effective in keeping teens engaged in positive activities. And they tend to resonate also more with non-drinkers. So what this suggests to us, these sports programs, it's not about just keeping teens off the streets and keeping them busy, but it plays a preventative role. It plays a role where they can see things like teamwork, they can see things like leadership skills or social support structures that might be missing in some other environments. But it is a preventative tool. And if they do consume alcohol, they're less likely to participate in that as well. So there you got programs, specifically other campaigns that will target whether it's at school. Something like Kimoja is also seen as more educational than engaging. But overall, when we talk to teens, we see that school remains the main source of recall. They are aware of aware.org's No to Under 18 campaign, and they recognize the Aware logo, they recognize Aware's participation. Overall, what we do see is that there is a preference for digital first media consumption. Teens want interactive, they want influencer-led social content that can link back to the education that they're receiving at school. Yes, things like peer-led group discussions, community sports events, those are the things that actually make an impact and that stick in teens' minds, and it helps them to prepare for what comes later in life. Yes, we talked about peer pressure. It's a bigger impact for those in the baseline survey. They're also less exposed to the partner programs. So what we typically see is peer pressure is a huge role, but social face-to-face influence plays a role in diminishing the impact of peer pressure. When you're online, people don't necessarily have the context. They only see specific messaging that's aimed towards what they already consume. So they tend to have maybe a bit more of a skewed environment or exposed to cyberbullying and things like that. That is a driver of peer pressure of alcohol consumption. The programs are seen as very helpful, and the programs do succeed by the majority of the respondents. the Makers of Tomorrow campaign is very well recalled for those who engage more online. And when we look at specifically the baseline, and programs like Scheme Song plays a critical role in diverging the messaging, that it's not always the same, and playing an important role in also playing a narrative role, a narrative messaging perception. Because media and communication channels play an important role. We know that school, yes, is important, but things like television, social media have a bigger reach with all the teams. And as they get older, they also tend to be a little bit more skeptical about programs that are offered at school, structured programs. So things like, for us, it's about the balance between education and entertainment. What is entertaining? What is relevant? Real life stories that can keep me engaged and can have this messaging retained after they've been exposed to all the educational aspects. Lastly speaking, younger teens respond more to structured educational content, but all the teens, it's about something that they can keep in the future, their future aspirations, their social standing. And they have to take slightly different approaches for boys and girls, using the right tone for the different audience, considering age or the gender. What we do see is that socialization-focused programs, so sports and peer-led initiatives, is a stronger protective buffer against education-focused programs alone. It's important that those education programs continue, but it's generally, I think it's something that needs to be supplemented by having additional programs. Lastly, we believe that creating a peer-driven advocacy and embedding an alcohol-free lifestyle in a social environment, together with educational aspects that's being implemented, will allow aware.org's messaging to continue to be relevant to teens and play a very important role in engaging with them on a national level, and a level that actually suggests that consistent messaging across the board. And that's the presentation for now.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your questions so far. If you have any further questions or queries, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. John, we do have a few questions to go through. The first one is, how were the invites distributed?
For the specific online survey, what we've done is we've used multiple online panels. So we probably used about 12 or so. Specifically then targeted a invitation email that goes to specific panel members. We do not know who it is. And then literally we just set up quotas and we send out the invite. The potential respondent will click on a link that's there and they expect it. Then they will select it, click it, do the consent form, do the understanding, and then they would provide the tablet or the device or the link even to their teens. We did clean the data. We took out maybe slightly less than 10%, which is standard for online research. Looking at what the responses say and where the responses came from. We also do things like checking the IPs and geographies for duplicates or for bad IPs and things like that. But it wasn't online, it wasn't in terms of an email where the invitation was sent. We made sure that the teens, the parents or the guardians understood exactly what is required, but it did go to the teens in an anonymous way. So they did not necessarily understand that it was for aware.org. That makes sense.
Thank you. What assumptions were used when sampling the specific geographies in the face-to-face survey? Why did the researcher choose lower socioeconomic geographies?
We did not choose it. We specifically, so aware.org has got a series, I think Mokebe referred to it earlier, of programs running across South Africa. And what we said is, these are the 4 main implementing partner programs being offered in geographies of need. So we don't necessarily target at specific socio-demographics. We went to these geographies where Kimoja is active. We went to the United through Sport, and it's different. It's specific suburbs where the teens are coming from, and then we randomly selected in those suburbs. So at no point did we do a specific targeting, apart from the fact that we wanted to speak to those communities that are serviced by the programs that your implementing partners are running. It does come out when we look at the geographies that, it's not places like Sandton, it's not places like Constantia and things like that. It tends to be more middle class, typical geographies and social demographics.
Did you investigate whether the children go to similar quintile schools?
Similar, sorry?
Quintile schools.
In similar schools, no, we did not. At any stage, we did not ask that. We made very sure that we did not collect personal information or anything that would allow us to identify teens. So we told them in the beginning, whether it was face to face or online, so it's completely anonymous. And we at no point are we able to identify the respondents. For teens, it's important that they have the environment to answer these questions truthfully. So whether it was one of our people sitting there with them, we typically did it outside. It was nice and warm, asking these questions without a parent present, or whether it was online, that I could have the anonymity to complete it and to have a little bit of a social distance between them and the answers. We typically find that works better than if you do run programs at school or through more structured environment where teens do feel more exposed and they tend to maybe not be as honest as they can be in a situation like this.
What was the difference between the face-to-face and online research results?
For me, the fact that they do talk to each other is important, because even though we took different methodologies, we took different target markets and we used it to compare, we do see that a third of them say that they've ever consumed alcohol. Alcohol use regular basis is more, for example, in the face-to-face environment than it was for the online, but we think it's partly limited to or linked to social demographics. They tend to be, what I think is for the implementing parties where the Aware.org programs are running, they tend to be more open to harm reduction programs. They also tend to be less bullied and they tend to be better socially integrated. So for me, to some extent, and remember, not everyone that we spoke to participated in these programs. We did ask them, did you participate? Do you know someone that participated? Or, you've heard of it, but you have not participated or even know someone. So what for us was important was that we spoke to teens who either know someone who participated in these programs or they have participated in these programs. But we tried to get a view from teens overall in that specific geography to understand how they perceive these programs. And our findings suggest that if they on a grassroots level are involved in a program, it does change perceptions. It does tend to leave teens more resilient than if they do not get these programs from a younger age.
Okay. How did the study cater for minors admitting to breaking the law, since underage drinking is illegal?
We did not at any stage collect the personal information. So at that point, we asked them the perceptions, whether they have consumed alcohol before and where they've consumed alcohol. But it was not our role in this situation. We specifically did not collect the information. I think it's more important to understand their perceptions, and often teens are not given the voice to give their opinions when it comes to research like that. So we avoided that conundrum by not talking to them. We were able to give them to say, look, if you need help, there's lots of resources. But it was not our role in this situation. For us, it was really just to get the honest answers from teens than trying to change it at that point.
This is a program-specific question, Jean. It says, when I was in primary school, there were people who came to my primary school telling us about substance abuse and showing us images of the consequences of consuming alcohol. And I listened to them because of the visuals they showed. Why is face-to-face presentation no longer implemented?
My face-to-face programs at schools, I don't know why it wouldn't be being implemented. I think COVID changed a lot of how our messaging is being presented and also how it's being perceived. Those programs in primary school is super important. I think what we'd suggest to us is that going to schools or working through those structured environments for the young teens really gives them the rational at that point understanding of what is happening and what it actually means, and not just the glamorized or the view that they can see at home. As they get older, these things are integrated, and we can see when teens, they're very much in tune with the messaging. They can resonate with the messaging on a cognitive level. But the belief is here that it does diminish as they get older. And I think that's where we need to obviously then tailor for the different audience at different ages.
Thank you, John. In addition to John's answer, just to confirm, Aware does have in-school programs in various provinces that has key messages on underage drinking. We run recreational programs and specific the Kimoja program, which is led by coaches and mentors in the allo period or during their PE period. The next question, Jean, is, can the study be a nationally representative if only 2 provinces were sampled for some of the questions?
Okay, so we're not necessarily saying this is nationally representative. What it is for the online survey, we included all the provinces, all the geographies, everything that was urban and rural. So we gathered information from all the provinces. Yes, there is an online bias. So we might be missing the bottom 10 or 15% of the population. But for the targeted survey, just because it was based on specific geographies, specific provinces. So even when it comes to something like United Through Sports, we identified specific suburbs, and only those suburbs that we went to in order for us to get a readable sample. Because remember, this is also used by the implementing partners. So we presented this to Kimoja, we presented this to United Through Sport, for everyone to also get their perspective of where the teens that they're serving and what their specific needs are. So what we can say is that it's representative of the online population in South Africa for teens aged 11 to 17, and we can give you the exact specific population that it was sampled from as well. But it was intentional for the face-to-face survey to not go to every province. I mean, you could definitely replicate this, and I think there's a lot of other organizations academic organizations that do this on a nationally representative perspective. So they would be able to link more than that. But for our purposes, this was definitely more linked to understanding for the implementing partners what's happening in their geographies.
Results compared to other studies on teenage drinking in South Africa.
Yeah, that for us is encouraging. What we see is things like the Medical Research Council, there's national studies. That hasn't been done in quite a while, but to a large extent, yes, the focus was completely different. What for us is we do get similar kind of trends. We do get similar kind of outputs where they also look at about 15 to 20% of teens who do consume alcohol regularly. Yes, they've got different ways of measuring it, but it does compare well when we look at some of the academic research that's being conducted or has been conducted in South Africa. Some of the trends are a little bit old, and this is obviously much more up to date. But there's a very clear correlation in terms of the overall numbers and the different approaches that we do find for research like that.
Do these harm reduction programs actually work?
According to teens, yes. According to teens, that's specific. And I think it's important for us to, this is not a program evaluation. So Aware.org will run with its implementing partners, and other people will run evaluation campaigns to look at the specific campaigns or the programs and how the impact of those. But when we give them a voice and we can ask them to say what they perceive, we looked at it. So 90% of those who do not consume alcohol for online survey, 70% of those in the face-to-face survey said that it's very helpful, that it's engaging, so from their perspective, and they had absolutely no reason to not say that, they do say that it does work. Yes, there are clear nuances when we look at the impact of different programs, but from their perspective, they are agreeing with the overall impact that these programs are having. What they're asking for is, among others, that it continues for longer, that it involves the community. I think when this may be not shown here, but when we look at some of the feedback from the teens and the implementing partners, they talk about the programs and they talk about the impact that it's having, but there's also a need to not just always give it the responsibility to the school, a need to not always just give the responsibility to other organizations, but they mention alcohol consumption at home. They mention things like social support at home. And what we do see is a multi-pronged approach. I don't think the responsibility, because it is a social issue, lies necessarily just with the way, or just with the schools, or just with the industry, or just with everyone. From the teens' perspective, they do say that it's things like access at home, peer pressure, drinking alcohol. That is how it's happening. And as a communities and as integration in those communities is one of the things that the teens ask for as well. So from their perspective, it is a more social aspect that we need to look at, and it needs to happen at that level. Yes, the work that aware.org is running on a national level is extremely important, especially when we look at the channels where it's coming from and what the impact that it's having. But there's definitely a need from their perspective to also say it involves more in the community than just the teens and the people like Aware. It involves parents, it involves other community members. It's about the environment on a day-to-day basis that's more important.
Thank you, John. This is another program-related question, and the question is, are we tracking how many of these teens are actually discouraged from drinking after going through the programs, like a pre and post measure? Just to come in here, all aware.org programs are measured with a baseline and an endline survey. And this is not just for the no to under 18 pillar, this is across our 3 pillars. And one of the questions that we do ask the young people in the no to under 18 pillar is, have they considered reducing or eliminating alcohol now that they have been exposed to our key messages and our programs? Jean, I'm not sure if you want to add anything else to that question.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, I mean, those evaluation programs are exactly what they do. And then you look at your baseline and you look at your inline, typically to understand the impact of those programs. It's done on a level when it only looks at those. And I think want to reiterate, it's also we focus specifically on a random sample. So at no point that we specifically get say these and these and these teens participated in these programs and we went to see them. So and I think that's where it becomes encouraging, where we give everyone the same opportunity to be included in the survey, whether they participated or not, but we get the outcomes that are consistent with the messaging that we receive, which suggests that, from at least from a psychological perspective, that the teens are exhibiting similar kinds of perspectives and similar kinds of experiences, whether they participated or not. But where these programs have been implemented, we do see also that incorporation of these messages is better. So for us to suggest, independent of the evaluation research that's being done, is that these programs are having an impact, even at that perspective, and when it comes to national kind of messaging and awareness, not just on a local level. They really do speak to each other, I think.
Okay, next question. So what can the industry do to support these efforts?
So I mean, obviously there's a lot being done. It's about supporting initiatives that's currently underway, but also getting more involved. I think on local levels. What we do see is that there's a lot of programs being run. That on a national level, there's a lot of things being run internationally. So there's a lot of things coming through. But from an industry perspective, it's understanding the role that the industry is playing, but also understanding the gaps when it comes to communities, when it comes to the local level, and getting involved in those as well, whether through aware.org, already programs that's being run. But it's for me, what the things that I noticed was, for example, when teens say that, yes, in primary school we had these programs, and now we get to high school and now it's not there anymore. So they express the need to have more things that they can do, and whether it's specific sports programs or something at school. I think it's also important that the local communities get involved and the industry gets involved with local industries and have that impact there. And that we see is from an impact perspective would bring more relevance to teens.
The next question, Sean, what messaging works best? Educational, social, or inspirational?
That's a trick question, Dave. I think I would want to reiterate that education is a necessary but not sufficient source of information. So I wouldn't say it works best. It works best at younger ages. But if you could almost think of it like that, my youngest son is turning 60 now, and we talk about these things, and he does say that when we're at school and they've got these things that people are showing us, there's always someone who's like giggling and things like that. But to understand that after the education and after the rational aspects are fulfilled, that they need to be listening to teens and providing them with the outlets, whether it is sports, whether it is something like that, can play a preventative role, but having something that is relevant to their lives and something that they can talk to. So something like, when I first heard about it, the Roblox video game or the computer game thing, it feels weird, but when we look at what teens are experiencing, they're saying that these are the ways that they're engaging. We realize that the TikTok and all these things are important, but we don't necessarily integrate it, because nowadays, to be honest, it wasn't necessarily like that. So it's about recognizing these channels and the channels that teens are using, and also recognizing that you need to make it something that would be exciting. It needs to be something that would be visual, and it needs to be something that has a legitimacy for the teens, not just based on authority, but based on legitimacy, based on relevance. And that's where we look at the research. Yeah, what's the relevance to teens? What is relevant to teens, and how do we build the relevance of teens? I think that's the key thing to understand here, is that it does change. It's slightly different for boys and for girls, and it does change over age. But just to have the traditional educational aspects will never be enough. And what Aware.org is doing is it's providing inspiration. It's providing something that's builds social resilience, which becomes much more important as teens get older, and as they're also much more likely to be able to want to experiment or to have exposed to peer pressure. So that's where that plays the biggest role.
Thank you for that, John. Thank you, everyone, for attending this pivotal webinar today and joining our conversation on underage drinking. If you have any further questions or queries, you're more than welcome to email any of the Aware team members, and we'll get back to you. We thank you for your time and your contributions today, and have a good day further.
We are Aware.org, the custodians of responsible drinking in South Africa. Our mission is simple yet profound: to reduce alcohol-related harm, to safeguard lives, and create a safer tomorrow. Our work is focused on 3 key areas: preventing underage drinking, promoting sober pregnancies, and making our roads safer by eliminating drunk driving. By partnering with implementing partners, experts, and communities, we drive programs that raise awareness and inspire change for all of society. But beyond the numbers, partners, and programs, what we do is about real people and real lives, with every story of change reflecting our mission. Here are some of those stories.
So we teach pregnant mothers that no amount of alcohol at any time of a pregnancy is not good for the fetus. The mother of one of the respondents brought the child for tests, and the child was diagnosed with FASD. She fell pregnant again, and she joined the program, the Healthy Mother, Healthy Baby program. The child then born with going through this program is now very much differently developed mentally and physically than the other children in the house. With that, I would say that FARS program really has an impact in guiding the mother through her struggles and having a healthy baby.
I'm moving in traffic and I'm stopped and I'm told, hello sir, you're under arrest. In that moment, a lot goes through my head. I was tasked with the simple thing to just take my partner together with my daughter there to Randburg, and all of a sudden I'm being arrested. It's not a sight I'd like her to see of me. So I'm in the cell. I remember I was speaking to a certain policeman, and in the conversation, somehow she said, but then there's a necro program that you can do instead of going to court. Through the necro program, I was able to learn a lot of things with regard to my behavior, my psychological behavior, my emotional well-being at the time while on the road. It's one of those things where if more people did it, then we'd have more people being responsible on the road. If we are informed and taught to do better, we can do better.
It just starts with one class to the second one, to the third one, to you buying it for yourself. And then after buying for yourself, where you have to crave, your hands are shaking and you just want another drink, you just want another bottle. The only danger that actually made me feel like now I've hit rock bottom when I was raped by 2 men. After that whole incident, that's where I went to drinking more. I always blamed my parents for not seeing that I was intoxicated, and when I wanted help, it was very difficult for me because now I'm like, I've been going through so much and you guys never saw what is going on in my life. At school, they tested me and they were like, there's something up with your behavior, what's going on with you? They showed me that they can give me help by giving me a SANCA letter. And then they explained to me the process of SANCA, and then that's where I was like, this is what I need. At that moment in time when I was very addicted and I was in that situation and depressed, I was very suicidal. My social workers and the people that worked there actually helped me understand myself more and show myself love. From my social worker especially, he actually made me feel amazing. He made me feel like a person again.
Before I started being a coach, I lost my mom. Now, having to do the job that I do, let me just say it gave me a reason to live again. Knowing that to them, they appreciate each and everything that we do. If the parents couldn't do it, we are gonna do it. So I see diamonds in them. I see them representing where we come from.
These stories are just a glimpse of the countless lives we've touched. None of this would be possible without the steadfast support of our members and partners. This culture of responsibility is a shared journey, and it requires the whole of society, every one of us, be it individuals, families, communities, and corporates.